The first airline e-ticket was issued in 1983. For 43 years, every booking in commercial aviation carried one, a legacy artifact, a booking reference, a piece of paper, or its digital descendant that became so foundational to how the industry operates that most people stopped noticing it was there. On May 5, 2026, Finnair created a booking without one. A flight from Helsinki to London Heathrow, confirmed through Amadeus Nevio, with a single unified order record and no PNR, no e-ticket, no EMD. It actually happened.
And while that was happening, Sabre was preparing a legal filing accusing Amadeus of running a monopoly.
Which is choice.
It tells you something about where the industry's attention is versus where the action is. Welcome to the V1 Airline Retailing Report. I'm Steph Nell.
I'm Eric Marketts. Here's how today builds. 3 stories and then one question that matters more than all 3. We start with the production fact everything else hangs on. The Finnair native order, what it proves and what it doesn't. Then the company that picked this exact moment to accuse Amadeus of running a monopoly and why the timing works against them. Then the quietest signal of the week, Coforge productizing the transition, and what it tells you about how fast the deployment wave is forming.
And then we stop talking about infrastructure entirely, because this week one industry voice published something that reframes the whole conversation. We'll close there.
Let's get into it. Start with what actually happened, because everything else this week depends on it. May 5, 2026. Finnair CEO Turkka Kuusisto manually creates a booking on Finnair.com, Helsinki to London Heathrow, through Amadeus Nevio. No PNR, no e-ticket, no EMD. A single IATA-1 order-compliant record, the world's first native order, on a live commercial airline website. Since then, 40 million additional Nevio bookings processed. Air France-KLM, British Airways, and Saudia have all confirmed Nevio.
So the question isn't whether the platform works. It does. The question is what this proves and what it doesn't.
Start with what it proves.
One thing, precisely, Amadeus has a production-validated O&O platform running on a full-service network carrier, not a prototype, not a limited pilot on a regional route, a live system processing real bookings on an international hub carrier. That is a durable competitive advantage in every commercial conversation Amadeus now has with the next 50 airlines on the transformation journey. Every vendor still in design or certification mode is now in second place, not because Amadeus has a better architecture in theory, but because they have the reference account.
In the bull case, does this pull more carriers forward?
It does. Once one carrier demonstrates that native orders work without breaking revenue continuity, the risk calculus changes for everyone behind them. The early movers had to build on faith in the standard. The next wave gets to build on Finnair's operational evidence. And network effects start to matter as more carriers process one order bookings, interline scenarios get cleaner to resolve. The platform becomes more valuable as adoption grows.
In the bear case?
The gap between selection and go live Finnair is a small, technically sophisticated carrier already deep in the Amadeus ecosystem. Their transition was unusually low friction by airline IT standards. Air France-KLM, British Airways and Saudia have confirmed Nevio. They have not gone live. Getting to a native order on a major hub carrier with alliance partners, complex interline agreements, and a global distribution footprint is a fundamentally different program than what Finnair ran. Selection is a commercial decision. Go live is an operational one. Those are not the same thing.
So what do we actually watch for next?
Which Air France-KLM routes go live on Nevio first, and how the agency and corporate booking community responds when native orders start hitting a high-traffic European hub. Finnair proved the plumbing. Air France-KLM will prove the distribution. That is the real test. Hold on to that distinction. It comes back at the end.
So Finnair just proved the platform works in production, and 3 more carriers are lining up behind it. Now, here's the company that chose this exact moment to accuse Amadeus of running a monopoly. We covered the origin of this dispute in Episode 4, Sabre CEO Kurt Eckert on the Q1 earnings call, accusing Amadeus of using its Altéa PSS to lock airlines out of competing offer and order platforms, announcing regulatory and legal action. That's the context. Here's what's changed since then.
Quite a bit, and it all points the same direction.
Sabre announced the legal complaint in early May. In the 6 weeks since, Finnair goes live with the world's first native order. Amadeus processes 40 million more Nevio bookings. Air France-KLM confirms Nevio. British Airways confirms Nevio. Saudia confirms Nevio. In other words, in the same window Sabre spent building an antitrust argument, Amadeus signed what amounts to the backbone of the European long-haul network. Voluntarily.
And that's the problem. The airlines are trapped argument is hard to sustain while airlines are publicly choosing the platform. That's the fundamental issue Sabre now has.
Is there a world where the legal play still works?
There is. If a competition authority, the EU is the most credible venue, finds that Amadeus used Altéa's operational dependency to impose conditions on airlines that want to work with competing O&O vendors, that's a real antitrust theory. The remedy would likely be API interoperability requirements. Altéa customers get genuine access to Sabre OSD, Accelia, or any other O&O platform without Amadeus-imposed friction. If that happens, you get real market competition. Airlines get choice. That's a better outcome for the industry.
And the bear case?
The bear case is the timeline. Regulatory investigations in the EU take 2 to 4 years at minimum. During that entire period, the status quo holds, which means Amadeus keeps signing airlines, building production volume, and deepening switching costs every quarter. The airlines confirming Nevio now are committing to multi-year migration programs. By the time any remedy is in place, Amadeus will have converted enough of its Altéa base that the addressable market Sabre was targeting has structurally shrunk.
So what's the critical read here?
Sabre's problem isn't the legal strategy, it's the sequencing. An antitrust argument requires demonstrating that airlines wanted a different solution and couldn't access it. But Amadeus has spent the last 6 weeks making it very difficult to argue that airlines don't want Nevio. They're confirming it publicly the way we just walked through. Sabre now has to win the commercial argument and the legal argument at the same time. And the commercial argument is moving in the wrong direction. The legal filing may have been the right move 6 months ago. Today, every new Nevio confirmation makes it harder to sustain.
So the platform is proven and the airlines are committing. The next thing you'd expect to see is the services market moving to capture the implementation spend. Right on cue, on May 21st, Coforge, an AI-native engineering services firm with serious airline IT depth, launched Aeronova.ai. The pitch: a purpose-built execution framework for airlines doing the offer and order transition. Pre-built integration assets, AI-assisted automation, implementation playbooks specific to airline IT. Not a competing retailing platform. An accelerator for airlines trying to close the gap between O&O strategy and actual deployment.
And the product matters less than what the launch signals.
Break that down.
When an engineering services firm productizes around a specific transformation program, not a consulting practice, a named product with a launch event, it means they've done the math on pipeline. They see enough volume to justify industrializing the approach. That's a market maturity indicator. Coforge isn't betting on a transformation that might happen. They're betting on a deployment wave they believe is already forming in the 2026 to 2028 window. Same wave Finnair just kicked off.
What's the bull case for the framework itself?
The execution gap is the real problem, and it's been documented. IATA's own data puts meaningful O&O progress at 27% of airlines. The carriers that haven't started aren't necessarily unwilling. They're operationally stuck. The primary failure modes in NDC and O&O programs are almost never technical. their workflow gaps, data architecture mismatches, legacy mid-office conflicts, edge cases nobody mapped. Before Go Live, a framework that standardizes the mobilization phase and gives airlines proven integration, Assets removes the most common reason transformation programs stall. Coforge has been in airline IT for decades. This is not a startup pitch.
And where does it break down?
The real complexity in O&O implementation lives downstream of search and book, in exchanges, refunds, disruption management, financial auditability. Those are the workflows where a standardized playbook runs into the reality that every airline's legacy architecture is slightly different, and slightly different is enough to break the model. There's also the vendor layer question. If Aeronova.ai works best alongside a specific O&O platform, it may add a dependency rather than reduce one.
So what should the 73% of airlines who haven't started O&O take from this?
That the deployment wave is forming now, not later. Implementation services firms build products around demand they can already see. They don't lead markets, they follow them. Airlines that read Aeronova.ai as a vendor announcement are missing the message. The message is that the ecosystem is positioning for widespread O&O deployment in the next 2 years. The question is whether you're in that wave or you're watching it from the sideline.
3 stories. Notice they're all the same kind of story. Who built the O&O platform? Who's fighting about it? Who's productizing the rollout? Every one of them is an infrastructure story. The pipes. And the industry is finally having that conversation seriously. Which is good. But this week, one of the sharp voices in airline distribution published an argument that the whole industry is asking the wrong question. Jim Hetzel, who leads strategy at TWI with 40 years in the business, put out an LinkedIn opinion piece on May 28th. The title is the entire thesis. You spent a decade implementing NDC. You still don't know how to retail.
And the timing of his argument is the part people will miss. He doesn't open with retailing theory. He opens with the margin emergency that's happening right now. Jet fuel roughly doubled in weeks after the strikes on Iran. Crude spiked when the Strait of Hormuz closed. Fares on major international routes jumped 30 to 40%. War risk insurance premiums up as much as 500% per flight. United Scott Kirby told his own employees that fully offsetting the fuel increase would require revenue performance. He called an open question, and that the added fuel cost alone would exceed United's best annual profit ever.
So his point is, the margin problem just became impossible to ignore, and the answer is not in your messaging standard.
Exactly. Airlines were already thin. They just got thinner. And the reflex is the old playbook. Cut capacity, add fuel surcharges, suspend guidance, wait for the conflict to resolve. That playbook has a ceiling, and the ceiling is low. Meanwhile, the traveller who's still flying is paying more for the seat, but they're not spending less on the trip. The hotel still gets booked. The tour still happens. The experience still gets purchased. The only question is whether the airline captures any of that revenue or watches it go to an OTA.
And the data on that is hard to look at once you actually look at it. Hetzel lays it out. Global airline ancillary revenue hit $148 billion in 2024. Record number, sounds like a success story. Then you look inside it. For the largest U.S. carriers, 40 to 50% of all ancillary revenue is frequent flyer miles sold to co-branded credit card partners. The rest is mostly bags and seat assignments. Actual non-air content, hotels, tours, activities, experiences, is a rounding error on most airline P&Ls.
And here's the number sitting right next to it. The global tours, activities, and attractions market hit $271 billion in 2025, heading to $342 billion by 2029. Only 33% of those bookings happen online today, against 64% for travel overall. That is the single most under-digitized, under-distributed, high-margin category in all of travel, and airlines, who hold the customer at the exact moment of trip intent, the moment they've just confirmed a destination, capture almost none of it. As he puts it, that's not a missed opportunity, that's a strategic failure.
So why doesn't the industry talk about this alongside the infrastructure conversation?
Because infrastructure is easier. It has a vendor, a roadmap, a certification standard, a migration plan. Retailing strategy requires someone to decide what the airline is actually trying to sell, and then build the supplier relationships, the curation, and the booking flow to present it at the right moment. That's harder. And it doesn't fit neatly into a PSS migration timeline.
And his picture of what real retailing looks like is concrete. It's not affiliate links with a 2% cut buried 3 screens deep. It's curated, bookable inventory, hotels, tours, transfers, experiences, surfaced at the right moment in the travel planning journey. The traveler booked a flight to Sydney, so you offer them a Great Barrier Reef dive package before they close the browser. Someone heading to Queenstown sees a bungee offer next to their boarding pass, not 3 days later in a marketing email they ignore. The airline can even leverage the traveler relationship and data to push these types offers in-app or via messaging to capture spontaneous, in-the-moment interest in an activity or experience.
Which is exactly why this episode connects. Finnair proved the pipes work. Sabre's fighting over the pipes. Coforge is productizing how to install the pipes. And Hetzel's line lands the whole thing. NDC gave you the pipes, offer and order is cleaning them up. Now someone has to decide what flows through them. You can have the most technically sophisticated retailing architecture on the planet and still be a bad retailer. The infrastructure doesn't fix that. The priorities do.
3 stories, 1 question. Let me close it.
The Sabre-Amadeus dispute has moved from accusation to production fact. Amadeus answered the antitrust challenge commercially, not legally, and every Nevio confirmation since Sabre filed makes the legal argument harder to sustain. This isn't over, but the commercial momentum runs in one direction.
And Coforge's Aeronova.ai isn't the story. The story is what the launch signals, a deployment wave forming now in the O&O implementation market. For the 73% of airlines that haven't meaningfully started, the ecosystem is already pricing in your decision. The question is whether you're in this wave or behind it.
And here is the thing nobody is watching, and should be. What do those carriers sell through Nevio when they go live? If the answer is the same bags, the same seat upgrades, the same buried hotel links, the industry will have spent a decade and billions of dollars building a more elegant version of the same checkout page. Jim Hetzel's piece is the strongest versions of that argument we've seen this year, and the fuel crisis makes it urgent, not theoretical. The infrastructure question is being answered. The retailing question has barely been asked.
If this episode landed for you, read Hetzel's piece. It's linked in the show notes. And share it with someone deep in the O&O conversation who hasn't heard the retailing question framed this way. That conversation needs to happen in parallel with the infrastructure one, not after it.
And if you're working through what your airline actually sells through the system you're building, the supplier strategy, the booking flow, the curation model, reach out and provide us feedback. Drop us an email at info@advisory.co. These conversations are better when more informed people are in them.
Back next Monday. I'm Eric Marketts.
I'm Steph Nell. Thanks for listening.
Stay sharp out there.